In 1966, four teenagers grow up together in a tight little corner of New York called Hell's Kitchen. They are born into modest families, nothing fancy, but the neighborhood itself is surprisingly decent. Even though New York City is already busy and modern at that time, Hell's Kitchen is still relatively free of crime, so kids can run around and play outside without constantly looking over their shoulder. The people there look out for each other and work together to keep trouble away. When a drug dealer once tried to bring poison into their streets, the residents did not just chase him off. They punished him in the harshest way possible, by killing him and sending a clear message that their neighborhood is not to be messed with. Like most teenagers, these four boys love getting into trouble. One of them, Lorenzo, is bold enough to steal a tool used by a nun to discipline her female students during church.
And you will receive the gift of the
That is already reckless, but he does not stop there. Together with his friend John, he sneaks into the confessional booth, pretends to be a priest, and listens in on a neighbor's confession, a woman who is pregnant because of an affair. Their mischief eventually catches the attention of a local priest named Father Bobby. Instead of scolding them, he tries a different approach. He reaches out, spends time with them, and slowly becomes part of their circle. They start playing basketball together and hanging around the church more often. Between games and casual conversations, that is when Father Bobby slips in his advice and guidance, hoping at least some of it will stick. One of the reasons Hell's Kitchen stays free from street thugs is a man everyone fears and respects, King Benny. His reputation is almost mythical. When he was younger, rumors say he worked as a hitman for a cartel. His name appears in countless stories that the kids grow up hearing, and that mystery makes Lorenzo even more fascinated by him, until he finally decides to approach King Benny in person. That courage pays off. King Benny eventually gives Lorenzo a job. Every week, Lorenzo is trusted to deliver bribe money to the local cops who watch over the area. It runs smoothly until one afternoon, two thugs try to rob him and grab the money from his hands. Luckily, King Benny has already anticipated something like this. He has a trusted man shadowing Lorenzo, and that man opens fire on the thugs, scaring them off and protecting the boy. To prevent that sort of ambush from happening again, Lorenzo suggests that King Benny also recruit his friends. If they walk together as a group, nobody will suspect that they are acting as couriers. King Benny agrees, and from then on, each of the boys earns $25 a week, a small fortune for kids their age. Time passes, and about a year later, another serious incident hits their circle. John is rushed to the hospital after being beaten by his own father. At that time, child abuse is still often brushed off as something normal inside the home. Many of the parents in their neighborhood are war veterans, men whose minds never fully recover after World War II. The only adult who truly tries to stand up for the boys is Father Bobby. He even goes as far as visiting John's father directly, warning him not to repeat the same mistake again. A few months later, during summer break, the boys are seen hanging out on a rooftop, enjoying the warm weather and their freedom. Everything seems calm until a street vendor passes by on the road below. The moment they spot him, their energy shifts. They have a routine for getting free food, and they know exactly what to do. One of them creates a distraction, while the others steal the vendor's cart. Their usual escape plan is simple. They push the cart to the edge of the stairs leading down to the subway. By placing it there, the vendor never dares to touch them. One wrong move and the cart could fall, damaging everything he owns. But this time, things do not go the way they expect. The cart is much heavier than they realize. They lose control and it tumbles down the stairs.
But we would all pay a price.
At the bottom, it crashes into a man who happens to be walking by. The accident leaves him in a coma. Even though they are minors, the law does not go easy on them. The boys are charged with assault. The day before the trial, Lorenzo meets with Father Bobby. He feels terrified at the thought of going to prison and even considers running away. But Father Bobby reminds him that they have to face whatever comes next. When the court date finally arrives, all four boys stand before the judge, pale and full of regret. The verdict is read. Mike, John, and Thomas receive 18 months of confinement. Lorenzo gets 12 months because, at the exact moment the cart fell, he was not standing there. He had been running from the angry vendor. Instead of being sent to a normal prison, they are transferred to a reform center called Wilkinson. Father Bobby walks with them all the way to the holding area. Before they part, Lorenzo quietly asks him to look after his mother, because at home she suffers beatings from his father. It is a moment no child should ever have to face. That was the moment everything changed. This is Sleepers. The boys are then transported to Wilkinson. At first glance, the place looks proper and well-maintained. Each boy gets his own room, almost like a boarding school. But that appearance is only surface level. Behind closed doors, the guards act like predators. On his very first day, Lorenzo becomes a victim of abuse by a guard named Noakes. He follows every instruction, believing it is part of a routine check, not realizing the darkness behind it. Wilkinson turns out to be more than just a place for kids like Lorenzo. It also houses troubled teens who are nearly adults, hardened by life long before arriving there. Because of that mix, bullying becomes part of daily life. One afternoon, Mike is carrying lunch when a bigger kid pushes him around. Even though the bully towers over him, Mike refuses to back down. A fight breaks out, and soon the entire dorm gathers around, cheering like it is entertainment. The chaos continues until Noakes steps in and stops everything with barely any effort. It is strange how easily he controls them, even the stronger boys. At first, Mike feels relieved, thinking he has been rescued. But that hope does not last. Instead of addressing the real bully, Noakes blames Lorenzo and his friends. As punishment, he forces them to eat food off the dirty floor. If they refuse, they get beaten. What Noakes does is far beyond allowed rules, but most guards there share the same twisted mindset, so no one stops him. Thankfully, another guard named Boros shows up and saves them from further humiliation. But the damage is done. The incident only fuels Noakes' hatred. That night, he forces the boys into a basement room, where 3 more guards are waiting. Lorenzo assumes it will be physical drills or punishment. But what happens is far worse. The guards abuse them, revealing the darkest side of the institution.
A blowjob. There are no clear pictures of the sexual abuse we endured.
After that, nothing feels normal anymore. The boys come from violent homes, so they are used to silence, fear, and hiding pain. They have no one to confide in except Father Bobby, who visits every month and tries to make sure the boys are still holding on. But Lorenzo stays quiet, not only because he is threatened by Noakes, but because he feels ashamed and broken. Days pass and the abuse escalates. One of the guards, Ferguson, often sneaks into John's room drunk at night and assaults him. It becomes clear that Wilkinson is not a place of rehabilitation, it is a hunting ground. Sometime later, Lorenzo is shown bruised and beaten, locked in solitary confinement. To understand how it gets this bad, the story goes back a few days earlier. Noakes announces a rugby match. The guards will play against the boys, and senior officials will be watching. Before the game, Noakes warns the 4 friends to lose on purpose, but Mike refuses to let that happen. He recruits Rizzo, a talented athlete and one of the strongest boys in the facility. With Rizzo on the team, they win, embarrassing the guards in front of everyone. That small act of defiance has brutal consequences. Not long after, Rizzo is found dead in his cell. The official report claims pneumonia, but everyone knows exactly who is responsible. 12 months slowly pass. If everything goes according to schedule, Lorenzo will finally be released tomorrow. But the night before freedom arrives, Noakes shows up at his door. He claims he just wants to say goodbye. Instead, the same nightmare repeats itself one last time. The story then jumps forward 13 years. 2 grown men walk into a bar. They are far from ordinary. Over the years, they have become criminals involved in robberies and even murder. When one of them heads toward the back to use the restroom, he unexpectedly crosses paths with someone he recognizes. Someone he never thought he would see again. It is Noakes. He returns to the table, tells his friend, and the decision is immediate. They approach Noakes and reveal who they are. These men are John and Thomas, once innocent boys who were abused and destroyed inside Wilkinson. After years of carrying trauma and rage, they finally have the chance to strike back. John delivers the first blow, using molten lead to permanently destroy the man who once controlled their lives. After the attack, they walk away calmly, almost as if the act is routine. But their escape is short-lived. Police track them down and they end up behind bars awaiting trial. During their time in custody, a journalist visits and asks about their motive. That journalist is Lorenzo. Soon the story shifts again. Mike is now an adult and has built a career as a prosecutor. And in a twist that is not accidental, he becomes the one assigned to handle the murder trial of John and Thomas. This is not fate. This is his plan. The real reason Mike became a lawyer was to one day seek justice in his own way. Over the years, Mike has quietly tracked down the guards who abused them in Wilkinson. One became a police officer, another became addicted to gambling. One now stands on church stages preaching redemption, pretending to be a changed man while enjoying a respected government position. That hypocrisy fuels Mike even more. The plan for the trial is already in motion. It must be done carefully, without John or Thomas knowing. If they knew, they might react emotionally and ruin everything. Mike selects a defense attorney they can manipulate. Someone unpredictable, reckless, and desperate. His name is Danny. He has not won a case in over a year because of his drinking problem, but that flaw also makes him useful. Meanwhile, Lorenzo is sent to act as the bridge between everyone involved. One of his tasks is convincing King Benny to intervene. Using his influence, Benny can intimidate witnesses and silence anyone who might jeopardize the plan. The murder happened in Hell's Kitchen, so the territory belongs to Benny. His word still holds weight. There is one more concern. If John and Thomas learn that Mike, their childhood friend, is the prosecutor, they might panic or demand a replacement. To prevent that, Lorenzo visits Carol, John's girlfriend, and explains everything. The hope is simple. When the trial begins, Carol will be the steady voice that keeps John under control. A few days later, King Benny delivers news. He has managed to pressure 2 out of 4 witnesses into backing out of the trial. The remaining 2 are outsiders, not part of the community, which makes them harder to influence. King Benny agrees to help partly because John and Thomas still work under him, and partly because he feels he owes something to Lorenzo, who has known him since childhood. This plan is no longer just about revenge. The goal now is to make sure John and Thomas walk free. To do that, Mike gives Lorenzo a new task. They need a credible witness who can create an alibi and convince the court that John and Thomas were somewhere else when the murder happened. The witness cannot be just anyone. It must be someone respected, someone whose word carries weight. So the next night, with Carol by his side, Lorenzo visits Father Bobby. This becomes one of the most difficult moments. Asking a priest to lie in court goes against the law, morality, and his own faith. Every witness is required to swear on the Bible. To justify the request, Lorenzo has no choice but to finally reveal everything that happened 13 years ago. Even if every word Lorenzo says is true, giving false testimony is still a grave sin. Because of that, Father Bobby does not give an answer right away. Meanwhile, the trial continues. The remaining witnesses show up in court, and Mike keeps playing his public role as prosecutor. He questions them as if he truly wants John and Thomas convicted. But hidden behind each question is a trap, carefully constructed so the defense can dismantle the testimony later. The goal is to make the jury believe the witness was drunk and never clearly saw the killer's face. Conveniently, the witness already has a known history of alcohol problems. What makes the moment ironic is how brilliant Danny suddenly appears in court. In reality, everything he says is scripted by Mike. He simply reads what was prepared for him. While the legal strategy unfolds, the boys also begin targeting the guards who abused them long ago. The first is Adam Styler, now working as a police officer. Lorenzo meets with a high-ranking cop and hands over evidence. With the help of King Benny's connections, they uncover proof of bribes and drug deals, enough to send Adam to prison. During all this, Lorenzo keeps checking in with Father Bobby. A week passes, and the priest still has not made a decision. The trial resumes. Mike continues working to prevent the real motive from surfacing. The good news is that the murder weapon still has not been found. No gun, no solid evidence. Wherever it ended up, King Benny likely made sure it disappeared permanently. If everything stays on course, there is a real chance John and Thomas may walk out of that courtroom free. In the middle of all the preparation and chaos, Carol secretly reaches out to Mike and asks to talk. Before she ever dated John, she and Mike had been together since they were teenagers. She waited for him while he served time in Wilkinson. But when he finally came home, he was no longer the same person. The confident boy she once knew had turned quiet and distant, afraid of even simple intimacy. After hearing Lorenzo's confession about what happened inside Wilkinson, Carol finally understands why Mike changed so drastically. Meanwhile, King Benny calls Lorenzo again with news. He has tracked down another former guard, Edison. The man owes a large debt to a loan shark, and through connections, King Benny has taken control of that debt. But the plan goes even deeper. He brings Edison's debt to a powerful gangster named Robinson, who also happens to be the older brother of Rizzo, the boy from Wilkinson, who was killed simply because he won a sports match against the guards. By shifting the debt, King Benny ensures Robinson can confront the man responsible for his brother's death. The next day in court, Mike asks the judge to allow a new witness. It is Ferguson, one of the guards who used to sneak into John's room while drunk and abuse him. Now he appears almost unrecognizable. His appearance is cleaner, calmer, and he claims to have changed. Ferguson takes the stand. Mike presents him as a friend of Noakes, hoping to convince the jury that the victim was a good man. But because he is a witness, the defense has the right to question him. This is where their strategy unfolds. Danny begins bringing up the hidden past. Slowly, the truth about Noakes and the abuse inside Wilkinson surfaces. Under oath, Ferguson can no longer escape it. He breaks down, crying as he admits everything.
Was there ever any sexual abuse at the Wilkinson home for boys? Mr.
Yes, Sean Noakes had experiences with some boys.
With you and Mr. Noakes?
Yes.
In a single moment, the jury's view of Noakes shifts. Sympathy turns into disgust. For many watching, it feels justified that someone like him would be killed. After testifying, Ferguson is arrested for his crimes against minors. Mike has used him exactly as planned. At the same time, Edison faces the consequences of his own actions. Because he cannot pay his debt, he is beaten and ultimately killed by Robinson, delivering personal justice for Rizzo. The final guard, Adam, is arrested by the police after evidence confirms his involvement in corruption and murder. One by one, every man responsible for the trauma inside Wilkinson is eliminated. The only unresolved question now is whether John and Thomas will walk free. Their fate rests in the hands of one man, Father Bobby. Danny asked the court twice to delay the final verdict, insisting there is still one important witness missing. The courtroom grows tense. Everyone begins to wonder whether Father Bobby will actually show up or if fear and conscience will keep him away. Then on the day of the rescheduled hearing, the doors open and he walks in. Before speaking, Father Bobby takes the oath with a hand on the Bible. He knows exactly what this means. What he is about to do goes against his beliefs and everything he has stood for. A week earlier, the group had delivered him a written script outlining what he needed to say in court. According to that story, on the night of the murder, John and Thomas were with him at a basketball game, nowhere near the crime scene. The alibi is simple, almost too simple. If anyone else told it, the jury might hesitate. But spoken by a priest, a respected figure, it becomes believable. Lorenzo and Mike feel guilty for dragging him into the plan. But without him, nothing would work. When the verdict is finally announced, their risk pays off. John and Thomas are found not guilty. The price of that freedom does not come cheap. Father Bobby sacrifices his principles. Mike sacrifices his career. He resigns immediately after the case because he never entered the legal world for justice. He entered it for revenge, and now his purpose is complete. To avoid suspicion, the group agrees not to see each other until 1 month after the verdict. When that time comes, they meet at a small restaurant. The reunion is emotional. John and Thomas are overwhelmed that their friends went so far to protect them. After 13 years of separation, their bond is still intact. They spend the night talking, laughing, and singing. For a moment, it feels like the weight of the past has finally lifted. But the peace does not last. 3 years later, John and Thomas are found dead in their apartment, reportedly killed during a gang conflict. Mike disappears from city life and settles in a remote village. He becomes a carpenter and remains unmarried for the rest of his life. Revenge did not heal them. Their trauma stayed, shaping the rest of their years. They survived Wilkinson, but they never fully escaped it. What makes this story even heavier is the fact that it is based on true events. Yet the government never admitted that abuse ever happened at the rehabilitation center. By the time Lorenzo finally told the full story, many years had passed and evidence was gone. So the moral of the story is sometimes the scars people carry are far heavier than the justice they finally get. And no amount of revenge can ever return the childhood that was stolen from them.